everybody, thanks for being here. All week long, we're having some of the greatest presentations about Funnel Cut. This is the place you're gonna get that information. And in this presentation, we're gonna be talking with Mike, and I'm sorry, Szumlinski from Cantemo Pro, and I'm gonna give him the little controller, and he's gonna talk about asset management.
Awesome. Thank you. So, real quick show of hands, how many people here are familiar with media asset management in some way, shape, or form? Okay, great. Anybody using a system right now, or is it all curiosities at this point? Okay, cool. So, give you guys a little bit of a background on Cantemo Portal. Cantemo Portal is a product that is a bit open in the way that we work with different media asset, or with different NLEs and various different tools. The goal of the system is to build software that is off the shelf and has a very strong capability set and solves a lot of the fundamental problems that we find within media management. When you have a lot of content coming in, or you're creating a lot of content, being able to tag that content with metadata fields, being able to tag that content with various different workflow options, flow things through a facility, distribute that media out to various different outlets, whether it be broadcast, social media, or just internal corporate, and really just offer a tool set around that. That said, the system itself is built on an enterprise-grade framework. It is scalable, and it is very, very extensible. So what we have oftentimes is a core feature set, and then on top of that, the capability of extending it to meet very specific business needs within your organization. We have, of our installs throughout the world, most of our installs, I would say 70 to 80%, have some sort of very business-specific logic and customization done to them to meet a need that generally isn't found by everybody that we wouldn't consider to be generic or fundamental. The way I like to describe it is oftentimes you have a core feature set, but there's always outliers of things that you need to do in every given workflow within media production. And rather than us try to focus on solving every single one of those little outliers, we give you an open framework to be able to do that yourself, hire on third-party developers, hire on consultants, and really grow the ecosystem. Additionally, the system starts relatively small. It's a fairly modest price point to get into our lowest system. But when you start to scale it, you don't ever lose any of your work. Quick examples, one of our smallest systems worldwide is about two people just doing photo tagging. Our largest one worldwide is 3,700 users with about 3.7 million assets, and it's all built around the exact same framework. When we talk about that, this is some technical things, but this is the framework in which we've built on top. So we have a lot of very open standards. Our development standard is based on Django and Python. So if you want to extend the application, you can do that very easily if you have a Django developer, or if you would like to hire a Django developer. If you don't know what Django is, that's totally fine too. There are tons of freelance Django developers out there in the world. It is an open source framework for application development in modular web tools. We also have a REST-based API. Anybody here know what a REST-based API is? So what REST is the ability to kind of call in and get information through very simple network calls to the system. You can make a call to the system, get information back out, and a lot of the modern technology we see in sharing information uses REST. That means that it's extremely open and easy to integrate with other systems. Additionally, at the core, we have a OEM product called Vitaspine, and Vitaspine is a media management framework. So it has no UI, it is just a bunch of programming bundle calls, but it is scalable, it handles transcoding, it handles database management, it can handle a lot of storage management things that we see day to day in media applications. And in addition to all of the fun stuff you get with Portal, you actually get an entire Vitaspine install hiding behind the scenes. So if you want to get even fancier with things, you can do that. We have a lot of powerful tools around the ecosystem of video. We can do annotation and subclipping. So if you have longer form content in the system, using your web browser, the entire system is web-based from a UI perspective, you can go in and add in and out points, build subclips, create their own unique metadata field sets for those subclips. So if you have a 2-hour-long basketball game, for example, you can go in and just tag the good shots, the highlights, so on and so forth. And that element is searchable independently of that master clip and can be sent directly into your NLE. We have a rough cut editor. So if you have producers doing shot selection and in and out point selection within your work group, they can flip up their MacBook Air on wireless, throw their feet up on their desk, and do shot selection, do shot ordering, mark-ins, mark-outs before it goes into craft editing and finishing. And that all happens, again, through a web browser. We have shareable saved searches. So if there's a metadata schema that gets used frequently for returning content, and oftentimes we see this as a workflow tool, so find me everything that's ready for distribution, find me everything that needs audio sweetening, so on and so forth. You can go through the content system, save that, and share that information with other users in the environment. And we also have collection management. So we have what we call collections. Who in here ever used Final Cut Server back in the day? Anybody? Okay, so there's a feature of Final Cut Server called Productions, and essentially they were curated collections of content within the system. A human being decided to put content into it, but the beauty of doing it within collections, unlike a file system, is an element can live in multiple collections. Whereas if you're in a file system, an element can only live in one folder at a time. So if you use the same element in two projects, okay, quick show of hands, who knows which folder it goes into? What's the answer? You either duplicate the media, or it's only in one and it's not in the other, and then things get disconnected and lost. So collections give you a really great way to organize projects, curate collections of B-roll, commonly used elements, so on and so forth. And again, all of that is permissions based. So the system has a really robust permission system. Obviously in smaller work groups, not too big of a concern, but once you start to get into larger environments, there are tools within the system to allow the flow of permissions depending on where in the workflow it is. So open up access to editors until it gets to a certain point. Limit access to the editors when subscription dates get to a certain point. If I have licensed media, I can have it automatically turn off in the system based on subscription end dates, so on and so forth. So really powerful tool set, and this is just a small smattering of what we can do within the system. This is more of the kind of user front end and what ties into the NLE side of things. We have arguably one of the strongest FCPX integrations out there. Who here has tried to share an FCPX project before? Okay, how did it go? Was it fun? Not fun. Yeah, okay. So we actually have the ability to check in and audit FCPX libraries and project files and share them simultaneously to different users within the system, all through relative media linking. That's a fancy way of saying I can share something with you really quickly with one click, and I don't have to worry about opening up the library and then, oh, somebody else has got it locked right now, I can't do that, so then I gotta go walk down the hall and find him and be like, dude, quit Final Cut because I need to do this, and then he's like, all right, but I'm working on this and I can't because that one element's in that, and you know where it goes from there. So we have a very strong toolkit for that. We also bring annotations in Portal into keywords in Final Cut X. So any annotation that's done by a logger or anything like that is usable as a draggable subs clip or a draggable keyword right within Final Cut X. We also parse Final Cut X project files and check in missing media when you add it to the asset management system. So if we start a project and we add in 20 elements from our media asset management system, it was all checked in the right way. Something great comes in. It's on a FireWire drive or a USB drive. It gets plugged into the front of the machine, and I drag it into my project and start working with it. When we check in our project, it says, ooh, that clip, I don't know what that clip is. And we immediately say, do you want to add metadata to it? And when you add the project to our system, it automatically grabs that file, puts it into the media asset management system, makes it available to everybody else, and reassociates it with its new location on the SAN within the project file. So the next guy that checks it out just has it. You didn't have to go find that USB drive that's still plugged into Joe's Mac Pro down the hallway, and he doesn't even know where it is because, hey, who does? The other thing is the rough cut edit sequences from the web browser turn directly into projects inside a Final Cut X library. So again, producers or shot selection can happen upstream without having to have NLE toolkits on lightweight, inexpensive hardware. And that can flow directly into new projects right within Final Cut X. So at NAB, we've got our 2.1 release that we're showing in the booth. Few new features that we have. We've got a dashboard and dynamic work list. That means that each user that logs into the system can build their own dynamic dashboard, which can have searches, jobs, all sorts of various things that matter to them in the system, visible immediately when they log into the system. It's a dynamic toolkit. It is also customizable, so you can use the widgets that we provide, or you can build your own widgets that talk to various different things within your workflow. We've got an archive framework. Who here knows what Quantum Storage Manager is? Anyone? No? I'm sure you'll hear about it from some of the guys in this room. Rune knows a few things about it. So Archive Framework gives us a new toolkit for doing storage tiering to a variety of different manufacturers. We're launching with Quantum Storage Manager support out of the gate right now, but as we grow, we'll have more and more options for Tier 2 storage right within the system. No worries about it. Literally click the archive button and things go off to Never Never Land where you guys don't care about. And when you need them back, you just click the restore button and they just show up back in your NLE. We also have a transcoder framework, which means that we have our Vitaspine transcoder that we include out of the box with every system. We now have support for Vantage as well. Soon we'll also have episode support, and we'll also have Adobe Media Encoder support. So if you want to build different transcode workflows, you can do that using our transcoder framework and not just have to use the transcoder that we do give you for free out of the box. We also have Adobe Anywhere 2.2 support if anybody's ever has any interest in that. Probably not in this room, but it is something that we have. And lastly, I didn't put it on here. We actually have a new product that, or a new plugin called the Rules Engine 3, which is a full node-based automation toolkit. So building rules and automations now is as simple as saying, okay, when this metadata is flagged as this, transcode it to this profile, email this person, send it to this storage, and then deliver it to this website. All without having to do a thing. You set up automations and away it goes. So that's my kind of high-level overview for Cantemo Portal. Please come see us on the floor, south lower, towards the back, 14811. We've got 5 different demo systems there with all of the different NLEs, all of the different toolkits we have. We are showing every bit of this there. Come, poke, prod, ask questions. So,
any questions for Mike? Because if you don't, I have some, but I want to get your questions. Yep.
You know, obviously Final Cut Pro 10 and your product both handle metadata, and you can edit them both. And how do you resolve that they're both maybe good at adding metadata, collecting metadata, and obviously there's some the user provides and some that are collected from the media itself.
So we fully scrape EXIF and XMP metadata. That's all mappable in the system. So any clip that you bring into our system that has EXIF or XMP metadata embedded into it is automatically indexed and searchable. You can make that to what we have called advanced searching, where you can actually make it visible to have fields where you can search for specific EXIF metadata or XMP metadata, or it just gets indexed and you can literally just type in fstop 1.8 and everything that's 1.8 comes back if that was tagged in the embedded metadata. From a Final Cut X perspective, anything that we tag within Final Cut or within our system that has a mapped field in Final Cut X gets flowed down to the NLE. We can build a reverse set as well, so anything that you tag in Final Cut, if you have a mapped field for that in our system, comes back into the into the MAM system as well. So that is something we have unique to Final Cut X, because frankly, Final Cut X is the only thing that has a solid metadata toolkit in it right now. That is still based on the relative limited amount of field sets that you do have within Final Cut. You really just have keywords and then a few columns. But as long as we've got a one-to-one link to that in our system, when you export a project, it knows all that metadata is in the project because we parse it all out, put it all into those elements.
So there's no danger of losing anything, because when you pull it from your database, it's going to populate Final Cut Pro 10 project. You edit it there and send it back.
Exactly.
It's going to overwrite what was there.
Exactly. So you've got metadata round tripping, and it'll only overwrite if it's a field that can only have one unique item in it. It'll actually append if it's a field that can have multiple elements in it. So, and we again, you know, the system is the portal system has a far more robust metadata schema editor. So you can basically make your Final Cut metadata a subset of a larger metadata schema, and the stuff that Final Cut supports can go back and forth. The things above and beyond that you can have still tagged, logged, and everything within the system.
Anyone else? Okay, now I'm going to get selfish here for a little bit. So I edit in a facility with 4 edit suites.
Okay.
And we have producers that work remotely. And from what I understand, I'm going to try and Lego block together a solution for me using Cantemo. Okay, so I have media that comes in from the field, but you say you have a web-based portal to look at and manage that.
Yes.
So my media is then going to get proxied, or I'm going to make something that's web-friendly. Yes?
Correct.
Okay, and that's stored somewhere on a server.
Yep.
Okay, and now your software allows me to look at those proxies that that a producer, say, in another state, could start tagging, flagging, commenting, keywords.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's all, the portal system is something that you own as a customer. It's not a software as a service. It's not a cloud service.
Right.
We do have some customers that have rolled it out in Amazon EC2 and used S3 as the backend storage, but that's more for distribution, not NLE workflow. Right. Because you're not going to edit off of an S3 bucket up in the cloud somewhere. But if you're in a facility and you poke a hole in your firewall and you give a path to somebody in Taiwan to come
I love it when you guys say stuff like, poke a hole in my firewall. I get there's a big drill on the back wall or something. Okay, so you're opening up a port in the firewall that the portal can get in and out from. So somebody in a remote location could be examining. Now, so what kind of, like what level, what size compressions would I do if I had initially shot 1920, 1080? How would I compress that down?
So our default proxy standard is 500 kilobit.
Okay, so it's a tiny little file.
Tiny little file. Yeah.
And Cantemo actually makes the proxy itself?
Yeah, there's nothing you have to do.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, you just check it in and proxy gets made.
Wow, all right. So this actually seems like something that I could do. So now, a remote producer could be going through all the media, marking the best takes of answers. Now, how does he, so he saves almost like a string out.
He could either create a rough cut sequence, which would be a true rough cut, right? Mark it in, mark it out, sequence. It would show up right in your FCPX timeline.
So the next time I open up my library, it's going to say, oh, hey, Peter made a new rough cut.
Yep,
it's called wicked cool.
Yeah, it's called Peter's Rough Cut, and it's in a collection called My Project 1234 that we're working on. I click it. And
I've known Peter a long time, and he wouldn't name it that, but yeah.
The entire system is based around XML and XSLT translations. So if you have sidecar XML, we can transform any external XML into ours on the fly when it comes in. We also have an XML spec, and the same goes for exporting. So if you want to send XML to another system, you can send it out, relate to different media, and you can transform that XML into any format you want at that time. That's all kind of under the hood stuff, but very, very robust XML support.
So you mentioned it is not a software as a service, that's the SAS. You'll hear a whole bunch of TLAs here. You know what that TLA is, right? 3-letter acronym.
Yeah.
So how then do I? So I'm not purchasing a service. I'm buying the software. Yep. I hook it up to my server. Yep. It's gonna make the stuff.
Yeah,
Why haven't I heard of this? This sounds cool.
We've been in the U.S. really only for about 2 years. The product's been around for about 5. And frankly, media asset management is just really in the last, I would say, 18 months to 2 years becoming what we would say a
mainstream-ish.
Yeah, mainstream. It was relegated definitely to the higher end facilities for quite some time because there really wasn't an economically feasible way to do it unless you had a significant budget.
Now, I don't know if I'm even supposed to ask this, but you said economically feasible. What does it cost? Like, so you said huge groups are doing it, but even a facility with 2 people.
Yeah. So
what's it cost for something like that?
So we sell the smallest package we sell is just a 5-user pack.
Okay.
And then all of the plugins and add-ons that I talked about, it's all modular. So you only get the stuff you need.
Right.
So if you just were 5 guys, you wanted rough cut editing and Final Cut, you're probably talking around $15,000 in software, which for an enterprise scalable grade system.
Well, when you think about the kind of time, so one of the things that in our business that we have come across, and I'm sure this affects everybody, one of the things that's really important to us is is a turnaround. So like I do, corporate video, and quite often the world is moving so fast that in the old days of like, oh, I had a producer who just flew to Lithuania to shoot a story for Autodesk, which by the way, we're cutting in Final Cut 10. So and by the time he gets back with the media, and is there any way that he could like do the proxy remotely? Like he gets to his hotel room and he throws the cards on a drive?
Well, you could absolutely, obviously our system would need the high res to create the proxy.
Right.
Now, if you had a really fast internet connection, you could upload that high res right
Okay, I got you. Yeah. So he still brings the media back, but what this allows, if I'm talking about turnaround for my work, he gets to work remotely. I can be doing something else. We're both getting it to the point where we're ready to cut our piece.
The other workflow you could do, if there is a shot selection aspect to this, is you could have him proxy remotely with some to Final Cut, export, drag it all in, export all the clips, as long as they're the same clips and the same length. Those can all be checked in the system, and you could upload those over a relatively slow internet connection. You can start tagging all that information in the portal system. When you get back in-house, you just drag all those files into a folder, and you go and you say, I want to replace this footage with a higher res clip, and all the metadata stays, all the collection organization toolkit, and now instead of it just being a low-res proxy, there's a high-res version that's ready to rock.
For a long time I've been saying that what Final Cut 10 does really great is it solves problems for editors that they don't even know they have yet. And what we're talking about here is stuff that most people, are just bringing in their stuff and editing, but when you're trying to go faster, and you have multiple people working on things, this is the kind of stuff, like this whole architecture that Final Cut 10 already has is what you're tying into that gives you a lot of this capability.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is it becomes your kind of collaboration central. It allows people that may not even know how to edit, but they know how to look at something and decide whether it's good or not. To give you feedback. And they don't have to be sitting on the couch over your shoulder anymore to do so.
Well, what I really like about this is it's tied so tightly to my edit system. One of our clients actually does use an SAS, software as a service. It's a cloud-based thing. They upload files. They actually make a what's it called, transcript for it. And I can always tell these projects because the transcript that I get back from the client, which is essentially a paper edit, it'll have something like frame number 97. I was like, you're doing hundredths of a second. That's not really, that's not really a frame. I don't have a frame 97, right? And so I have to like translate. Eventually, it all goes back down to paper or a Word doc, and then I have to keystroke in and fake the frames. But it's what we do. It's okay. But now I'm tied right into my timeline.
And everything that we do within the proxy world is also frame accurate. So we know the time base coming in. We create the exact same time base in the proxy, and any annotations you're doing on that low res, that directly translates to what flows into your NLE.
Very cool.
So if you mark frame 13 and you want to mark 1 second frame 15, we're going to give you exactly that with handles into the editor.
Very cool. Any more questions?
I have talked with a lot of clients and producers that are not, sorry guys, anyone listening, they're not that tech savvy. And so what are the tech what are the tech, if any, tech hurdles that maybe a client or producer can get over in order to integrate with your system?
There is a certain degree of just comfortability with the system, just like any piece of software. That said, we've been fairly successful in creating a UI that is comfortable for people. When you first log into the system, you have the option of doing your dashboard, or you just get a Google search bar, basically. It just says search, and it just has the words, and you type for things, and things come back. So I don't think there's a producer out there that doesn't know how to use Google at this point. I hope not.
I know a couple.
But that becomes relatively simple. And really the UI from an external perspective, when you are just talking about logging and adding information, is as simple as find the clip you want, click on it. We even have a comment infrastructure that's, they don't want to get so deep that they want to mark ins and mark outs and make subclips, they can go into the comment section and say, I like what's happening at 2 seconds. And you have that linked to that item. You may have to transcribe that, but it's there. It's all together. and that's a threaded discussion. You can actually have almost like a YouTube, your own private production YouTube. You can have a threaded discussion with people associated with a given element.
I love the goal of making our software as easy as Google.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things. The other kind of really nice thing when it comes to working with, maybe the less tech savvy is you can limit what they can see in the system. So as an administrator, you can go in and say, you know what, there's a group called producers, and these 3 guys are in producers. And when they log in, all they see is the search box. And then when they click on an element, all they see is the element itself and the metadata. And they don't get all the other buttons and all the other fun stuff. So the UI can be custom kind of tweaked to meet the needs of the user. And you can eliminate things that you can just get rid of buttons that they don't need, pretty much, at the end of the day. Because if they don't need to be going into the ingest, area, well, let's just get rid of the ingest button. It doesn't show up for them. You log in, it shows up,
And you have full demos and whatnot at the booth?
Yes, we have, with
It was up there. What's the booth number?
let's go back. Find out.
Look at that. Technology.
Whoops.
14811. Okay.
Yeah, 14811. So right off the main aisle towards the back of South Lower Hall. So just walk straight down the main aisle and you'll see us just slightly off to the left. We got a big glowing Cantemo sign, black booth, red desk on it, and you'll see a bunch of iMacs and probably a bunch of Final Cut going on.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
I have no idea what's next, but they're going to tell me, and then we're going to do it. Thanks, everybody.